Patrick, you getting ready to go to the Midwest somewhere or the Southwest?
I am Southwest, going down to Arizona.
Oh, I didn't know if we were supposed to mention where you are in a maybe an undisclosed location in the Southwest.
I did not give the silo number.
All right, we're back. I'm Carl Franklin. That's Dwayne LaFlotte.
Hello, hello.
And that's Patrick Hines.
Hello.
And we're here for another great episode of Security This Week. We obviously don't have enough people listening to our show because these attacks keep happening. And if they would just listen to our show and take our advice, maybe these wouldn't happen. I got some statistics here, and this will be our first story. It's from atlasvpn.com. Americans lost a record $3.5 billion to cybercrime in 2021 to date, as of December 2nd.
I would bet that most of that is ransomware.
You're probably
right. The vast
right.
majority of that. Yeah.
Yeah. But they also have data from previous years. In 2017, it was 542 million. In 2018, it was 818. In 2019, 1.2 billion. In 2020, 1.9 billion.
So this is a big jump.
And now we're up to $3.5 billion.
Yeah. It's a trend that is not going to get better.
Positive jump of 82% year over year. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
that's
not
terrible.
Awesome. It's the opposite of awesome. So this is exactly why we have this podcast, is to try to help somebody, put a dent in that number.
Yeah, well, we want to help you keep your money.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I'll tell you, we've seen some phishing campaigns, especially with Cyber Monday just going by, Black Friday deals. I don't even know that those dates matter anymore because I still see hey, we've extended our Black Friday to the Thursday after. But there's a lot of those. I'd love to see the statistics on it, but I'm betting at least 50% of the emails you receive are actual phishing campaigns.
Yeah. You're probably right. I don't really see them because Gmail does a good job of filtering them out. But I mean, even the ones that arrive in your spam folder are ones that got through some of the filters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, there's so many cool tricks to bypass filters nowadays. All right. You know what the latest really cool one we can use to bypass?
Go ahead. Give our listeners some criminal advice.
I'm always all about giving the criminal advice to all
give
of
some
our
more
listeners.
career ideas.
Hey, you
here.
ready? If you want to get something to bypass a filter, a spam filter of some sort, what's really cool is to take your message, type it out as you normally would to convince somebody to do something, right?
Yeah.
And then let's say it's going to be a bunch of text, a link you want them to click on, and a bunch of text. The 2 paragraphs of text, snapshot them as a picture, and then send it in an email with a picture and then a link and a picture. And that always goes through, but if you send it as the text, it will not.
Yeah. So
looks the same.
So the antithesis of that is if you get an email and all the text is not text, it's an image.
Do not click on the only link.
Chances are you don't want to click on anything.
Right? Yeah. Oh, it's so awesome. At some point, maybe they'll start using cloud and optical character recognition.
OCR.
And machine learning.
They should be doing that.
And then they'll just block all my emails. That's probably the easier thing. Machine learning going, you know what? They all come from Dwayne, so let's just shut him down.
Right. Hey, China's back in the news. Imagine that.
Shocker.
Hey, do they have to leave the news to be back? Or
I guess you're right. They're back on our show. How about that?
There you go. I like that.
Yeah, this is an interesting one.
Chinese hacking group APT31 uses mesh of home routers to disguise hacks. So this one's interesting.
Well, there's some stuff we have to unpack here, isn't there?
Yes.
First of all, what's a mesh?
So there you'll see in the literature for like home routers and that sort of stuff, Google has a mesh. There's a Ubiquity mesh. There's all sorts of meshes out there. All a mesh is multiple devices working together to do one thing. That's it.
So in terms of home Wi-Fi, it might be repeaters that you put around the house.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and that creates a mesh.
Correct. Yep. So you may have a bunch of repeaters, you may have 2 or 3 access points, you may have, whatever. And as long as they're all working together, that's a mesh, right? They look like one device doing one thing. What's neat about this one, so to unpack this a little bit more, we've talked about APTs before. Advanced persistent threats are your really high-end hacking groups, well-funded, lots of research dollars.
Tier 2, maybe, Patrick?
Yeah, they're just below nation state. They're often in the employ or cronies of the nation states.
Mm-hmm. And in some places like Russia, they pretty much are the nation state arm, but aren't recognized as such.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about this particular hack is over our shows, if you've been listening to this show over the last couple of months, we've already talked about massive breaches in several TP links and D-link devices and that sort of stuff, where if you went out and patched, you were good, but there was a way to breach those devices. And just in our last show, we talked about Sky routers having the ability to be breached and used for nefarious things and that sort of stuff.
Right.
So why does that all matter? It's because of this right here. If you leave those devices open, not only will somebody get access to potentially man-in-the-middle your data, so be able to see, transactions and sites you go to and that sort of stuff, which is dangerous. But that you also could then be participating in something like this, where a nation state or an APT compromises your network and then starts using your network to then hack into, missile silos or, nuclear facilities or whatever it may be.
The connection version of a botnet.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
So I have a mesh Wi-Fi at my home, but my computers are on the main Wi-Fi, and all of the, less important things are on the guest Wi-Fi.
Yep.
So what can we do to fortify ourselves? Not use a mesh network?
No. So what's a little bit tricky about the way that they worded this article, this is the record.media, is they said Chinese hacking groups APT 31 uses mesh of home routers to disguise attacks, not home mesh routers. But that's what I thought at first when I read it. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm using Google Mesh here. Should I be worried? And it's really, they're just using regular routers, just whatever home router you have. So it's a little bit wider of a concern. Any of your D-Links and Linksys routers and whatever you have at the house absolutely needs to be patched, and you need to change the administrative passwords.
Don't these things usually patch themselves though?
No, that's the surprise. Yeah. So if you have things that are highly managed, like the Google Mesh always patches itself. Right. Yeah. It just always stays up to date. I believe the Ubiquity ones do as well. But if you go to Best Buy and buy, any TP Link router, none of those auto update. All of them just sit there and wait for you to log in and say, hey, there's a new version. Let me go update it, because they don't want to update something and break something you're doing in your environment.
So this would be firmware, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting too, because for our corporate customers who come to us about updating firmware on IoT devices like routers and switches and firewalls and cameras and that sort of stuff, we have a service where we'll reverse engineer it to see if it's secure before they apply it. But for home users, you're more often than not better to apply the latest patch and go with whatever things there may be issues than staying with the old patch.
All right, guys, hang on 1 second while I apply the latest patch.
And while we wait for the reboot of Carl's router.
And you guys actually thought I did, because I paused myself on the camera.
That's awesome.
It's like cutting off the tree branch you're standing on.
Yep. Right. And also I'm looking at my admin panel here, and it isn't really obvious like how to update the firmware. It just tells you what the latest version, or it tells you what firmware it's running.
There's no standard about it.
Yeah. And then you got to go to firmware update. You look for a link called firmware update, and it's going to go get the latest. It's going to check to see if there's a new version.
Well, to some extent, that's a surrogate for how good the quality of the device is. As Dwayne said, a quality device isn't going to leave that to you.
Yeah.
But there's still a long tail. There's a big difference between the low end and the high end. So if something manages itself, it's probably higher end. It's probably a better product.
Right, but the majority of people go to Best Buy and get the latest whatever.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of that's not going to auto update. A lot of that's going to wait for the
Eventually they'll
user to
catch up.
log in and update. And I don't know how many people have on their yearly checklist. Go check the batteries in their, smoke detectors, and go change the filter in the furnace. No, by the way, go to your firewall and log in and check to make sure you're on the latest firmware.
I would say 0.
Yeah.
Oh, what is 0?
Yeah.
That's the correct answer.
Correct.
All right, let's move on. Linux malware that's going to run on February 31st. Yeah, sure it is.
What?
That's my birthday.
Yeah, this is interesting in that. So we'll break this one down a little bit.
Okay.
So this Linux malware that's going to run on February 31st, for all of you out there who are digging through the calendars to see if there is a date, February 31st, there is not. That's why this one's interesting. So what happens here is this is a cron tab entry. So let me break that down a little bit. Your computer, whether it's Linux or Windows, has the ability to run an automated process at a designated time and date, right?
That's
so
what
in Windows,
cron is.
yeah, in Linux it's cron,
Yeah.
which I'm sure Patrick would give us the song and verse on who Cron is as the Greek god of time control or something like that. I'm pretty sure Cron had to do with time and whatever, but. In Windows, it's task scheduler, right? So you can go in and create a new scheduled task and set it up for a date and time and get it to go. With Linux, the cron tab literally is just a file. So it's a file that sits usually in the etc directory that has a list of all the processes that are going to run at what times, at what dates, etc. And I'd imagine if you're a security program, you look through that list and look for what's going to run next and see if it's secure. When you come on a process that's never going to run like this because it's scheduled, but it will never run according to its schedule, my guess is this bypasses a lot of the security checks, right? Oh, they're never going to run. Why should I ever worry about it, right? And that's the big concern here. Yeah, it's a loophole in security checking that only checks processes that run, never mind processes that are set up to run.
So if it never runs, what's the problem?
I think the problem there is, even though it's not set to run, you can manually run it.
It can be called.
Right. So that now it's all set. It has the right privileges. It's ready to go. It's never scheduled to run, so it doesn't get picked up. And then you go and run it.
Sneaky.
So, interesting enough. So a lot of people were really concerned that, February 31st, things were going to fall apart. You'll probably be fine on that day.
And so it's called cron rat, and rat stands for what? Remote access Trojan?
Yes. Yeah. Remote access Trojan, remote access tool, depending on whether you're on the white hat side or the black hat side. But yeah, they're the same thing. Remote access to a system that you shouldn't be there on.
Okay. That's
the first step. It's the first step to getting access.
So if you have a Linux machine, probably not a home user, you probably run them either in the cloud or on premises at a business. So you know what cron is and all of that. So you might just want to go look at your cron schedule.
Make sure it's not running things on days that don't exist.
Yeah.
Actually,
or disable it.
Or verify everything that's in there every once in a while.
Right.
It's probably not a bad idea.
Probably not. Okay. And speaking of Android, because we always do, this is a piece of malware, a banking app. This is it has infected 300,000 Google Play users.
Oh, this is tough. Yeah. In some respects, from what I do, like breaking into companies, I am super excited for when Windows supports native Android apps. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it will be.
Because then my guess is it will support things like this as well, right? Giving us all new vectors to break into computers. So we've talked about this type of thing before. This is a classic sort of credit card skimming piece of software, right?
Okay.
Sitting there and monitoring and looking for you to put in credit card information or put in usernames and passwords and that sort of stuff. The sneaky part of this one is it is in programs that are already deployed in the store, in the Google Play Store.
Oh, So it's not an app. It's malware that is propagated through apps that are already in the store.
Yeah, and a
Yikes.
lot of them are those little apps that look like they'd be super easy to write, like a QR code scanner.
Right.
For those of you that don't know, like on your iPhone, for example, if you open the camera app and point it at a QR code, it decodes it for you. So
And
there's
gives
no
you
need
a-
for you to have a separate
Gives you a
app to
button
do it.
to
Right.
open Safari.
But for those that don't know that, they go, oh my gosh, how am I going to read this QR code? They go download
Right.
an app, and whatever app is there, they download it. They don't care, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So
That's like the paperweight app. Turns your phone into a paperweight. You can then, after you download the app and activate it, you can put it on a piece of paper, and it won't blow away.
but it won't. It makes
Do
it
you know that famous story about somebody who wrote an app that supposedly it advertised that it would waterproof your iPhone?
Oh no!
And so all these, and it was free, and all these people downloaded it and then went swimming with their iPhones, and of course they all broke.
Oh my god!
Well, they got their money back, right?
Yeah.
They did. He returned all that free money.
It might have been an Android thing. That's the kind of thing that would, in the older days, get past Google to get into the Android App Store, you know. But they've since done a really good job of vetting applications. But in the olden days, they didn't.
No, it was the Wild West. You could
It
deploy.
was.
In ye olden days.
Ye
olden
You're making me
days.
feel old.
Back
week.
when I had my Android popsicle, whatever, lollipop,
Lollipop. Marshmallow sandwich.
yeah, ice cream sandwich.
Technology names. They have. There's many people who have no idea what you're talking about.
yeah.
Versions of Android were named after confections.
Yes.
So I don't think they do that anymore, do they?
I haven't heard
Yeah,
one
I
of those
don't think
names in a
so.
while.
No.
They're just numbered,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
good.
Well,
because-
Microsoft used to name. They had a naming convention for their stuff, right?
Yeah, it's
And
always like
Longhorn
these
and-
really long names that are obscure and corporate, and nobody knew what they
Well, they
meant.
had cities. They had cities near Redmond.
Oh, those are
For
code
a while.
names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All
Not
right. Well, anyway. So what do we do about
So-
this?
For this one,
Buy an
just
iPhone?
be careful. No, I mean for this one, buy an iPhone. Actually, that is a great idea. We all at our company have iPhones, just because they are harder to break into. But if you have to keep your Android, like my wife, she will never switch over to an iPhone, so she keeps
Yeah.
her Android. You know, I just warn her, be careful of the things she downloads. So these apps were in the Google Play Store. They all ranged from a QR code scanners to PDF document scanners to crypto coin trackers.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Telling somebody to be careful what you download means nothing, because if somebody wants to download something, they'll download it, and they don't know whether it's got malware or not.
Right. So here's what I would tell you to do. And this is the same advice I give to my wife when she goes to download a new app. Every time you go to download an app, scroll all the way to the bottom, and you'll see the permissions that the developer is requesting on your phone.
Okay.
If they don't align with the app. So if it's
Right.
crypto tracker probably just needs access to call out to the web to find what the latest crypto coins are. They don't need access to your find location. They don't
Yep.
need access to your course location. They don't need access to your camera, your microphone, your contacts. They don't need any of that, right?
Right.
So if you see that, most likely that app is doing other things that you don't want it to do. Don't install it.
Another thing is just to look up the app on the internet and see if anybody else is complaining about security problems.
That's less helpful. It's helpful, but it's less helpful just because there are so few people qualified to figure out whether these things are safe or not.
Well, and the other thing to be careful of is when these apps update. So we talk about this a lot on this show where we're like update, patch. With these apps, this particular series of apps that was deployed, they waited until update to drop malware or drop card skimmers or whatever. So initially when you download it, it may not have, all of that malicious stuff. And then a week or two later, it goes, hey, there's an update. And you go, oh, well, Carl, Dwayne, and Patrick told me to update. So boop, update. And now you've downloaded the malicious software.
Well, is that because doesn't Google check every single version that, when you do a new version, or is it only the initial entry into the App Store when they do that check?
So I don't know their entire process, but I guarantee you there are ways to bypass it.
Yeah.
because
I
there
think
are
it's
ways
more
to bypass
stringent.
anything.
The initial is far more stringent than the updates.
Well, that makes sense to me.
We've been involved in it in the past, but we don't have any active iPhone apps that we're building. But we've done it in the past.
We do have a couple rats, though.
That's true, but those are Android.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Next on our
DNA.
list would be DNA.
What?
DNA. What? So the DNA Diagnostics Center, DDC,
Who I've never heard of.
I've never heard of either. And this, what's interesting is I wanted to look this company up to see if they're like the front men for some of those paternity tests you find in the supermarket and that sort of stuff, to see if they're the testing agency that does the tests. And
that's good,
right.
yeah.
So I got to look them up and see who they are. But they're an Ohio-based DNA testing company.
Okay.
And if I remember correctly from this article, they had talked a little bit. Yeah, the company offers paternity tests, DNA relationship tests, fertility tests, COVID-19 tests, ancestry tests, and testing for immigration purposes. I'm not entirely sure what testing for immigration purposes is, but they offer those tests as well, apparently. So they had a breach. They had a confirmed data breach that occurred May 24th, 2021 and July 28th, 2021. And the firm has concluded an internal investigation by October 29th. They are saying that full names, credit card numbers, and CVVs, debit card numbers and CVVs, financial account information, and platform account passwords were compromised.
Pretty much everything.
Well,
Pretty
what
much.
about your DNA? I mean,
what's
your
funny
genome
is they were very strict to say none of the genetic information was breached.
because
Only financial data.
I suppose if they could log into your account, they could look at all the
You would think so.
genome.
But then is
But
that
I think
considered
that would be
a breach?
But that would be the value, I think, of that kind of data is linking, say, an email address to genetic data. Oh, scary.
Right. And imagine they log in and they see certain, they log in as you because now they have your password and username and they see certain genetic information and then they target you directly through email, right? I mean, that you're more apt to click on it.
Actually, the social engineering aspects is the scariest because if I can get your DNA what's your nationality and things like that, I can claim to be a long lost cousin from that home country.
Sure.
There's all sorts of social engineering aspects. If I get deep knowledge that you can't connect to how I would get it, because if I said something like I'm your cousin on Aunt Ellen's side,
especially if you had the gullible idiot gene.
That's right, which you could check.
That comes up true.
Unfortunately, I think we all have that at some point.
Yeah,
it's a gene that gets turned on and on occasionally. But it's that kind of thing where people. I mean, think about magic tricks. People don't understand how you do something. Doesn't mean it's not possible.
Right.
Yes.
For you to fool them.
Right. Yep.
It's just they don't see the connections.
Yeah.
So if I managed to get this data and I had to, let's say I found out where your family's ancestry is. Carl.
Yeah.
And I came to you and said, "Hey, you don't know me, but I'm related to you. My DNA, I had my DNA done on this company, and they said that I'm related to you through your aunt, and I give you a name that's real."
Interestingly, I got an email like that recently.
Really?
Somebody claimed that I was related to this person of, the Franklin family somewhere in the world. And that person had died and left me $1 million in their will. And, if I would just follow this link and do these things, I could claim it. Yeah.
How'd that go?
Oh, it was great. I deleted it immediately from my inbox.
Now, it went before this show started. A friend of Carl Franklin, sent him a link in this show. And he said, "I'm not clicking that."
That's right.
Never mind someone he doesn't know.
You did. Dwayne basically pastes this cryptic URL in the chat and says, "Here, click that." And I'm like, "What is that?" And he goes, "Just click it, and then click open when you get to the thing." Click on it. I'm like, "Screw you, man! I'm not doing that."
I don't want to. I don't want to. Oh, Carl.
Next time, Dwayne, tell him next time not to do it.
Yeah, whatever you
Hey,
do,
Carl,
don't
whatever you do,
Don't
click
click
on
that
this.
link.
don't press
Now
the
when
red
I click on it.
button.
This is not for you. You are not authorized.
Only Patrick can click this. Don't click that link.
Just out of curiosity, was it really a test?
No, so we've developed a new piece of phishing malware that can gather information on your PC, and
It wouldn't have done anything negative to you.
I'll explain it in depth to people who are interested, but it wouldn't have done anything negative to your PC other than gather information.
And
I'm
demonstrate
interested
that it works.
I'm interested at how ubiquitous it is.
Well, I'm glad I passed the audition. Can I
You
join
did a
the
good
team
job.
now?
Yes, you can. You're in.
You could be on the podcast. Oh, wait.
Oh, wait. In our last story, and this is upsetting a bit, that data hacked for 400,000 Planned Parenthood patients. And this is, it's a ransomware attack on Planned Parenthood, but it's not the first time Planned Parenthood was attacked. There's a story from April that says the DC Planned Parenthood was also hacked. And
there's no news on whether it's the same variant of ransomware or whether ransom was paid or anything like that. So there's no way to tell whether it's the same organization
yeah,
Right.
from the information we have.
right. But, Planned Parenthood is a political target, that's for sure. So, but we can't really infer any real information except that it was, in this case, it was definitely ransomware.
Occam's razor would say that these are just two victims of ransomware, which is the most common thing. As we talked about the $3+ billion worth of loss, most of that's probably ransomware.
Yeah.
So if the April attack had been politically motivated, we would have seen data published and used.
Well, it was an
against
April story, but the hack occurred in the fall,
Right.
the original one. Yeah.
Okay, same thing.
Yeah.
We'd see that. So what interesting is a while back, more than a year ago, Marriott got hacked and lost 500 million records
Yeah.
of who stayed where and when and things like that from their rewards program. And the data never ended up anywhere on the dark web. And it's believed that it was done by China in an attempt for them to correlate the presence of people they thought might be foreign agents.
Wow.
And so that data if that's true, that data will never end up on the dark web.
And there'll be no
because
ransom requests.
And no
Right.
ransom was requested. It was just a breach. They downloaded the data. They didn't damage anything. They just wanted to be able to see whether Dwayne was a secret agent based on where he was staying.
Wow.
Right. Well, and I think that's the same thing with the OPM hack, right? The Office of Personnel Management, right? A lot of that data never hit the market.
Because it was a nation state that wanted
Exactly.
it for itself.
Right. Right. Because they were looking for people they can turn and make spies and that sort of stuff.
So let me float this idea for the name of this show. Whatever you do, don't click that link.
That's always a good
Hey,
name.
Carl, click it. Just click it. Just do it.
It'll be fun.
You know you want
It'll
it.
be fun.
You know you
Yeah.
wanna click it.
All right. Well, be careful out there, people.
Yeah, safe surfing.
You know, watch out for those nefarious people who say, "Click this." Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Click
just
it.
click it. We're
Hey,
friends. Click that link.
Can we include a link in the latest downloads?
Yeah, I got a link. I want to put in the downloads. I want everybody to click it and just click
Great.
And
OK.
the text will be, "Don't click this link."
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that'll be a test. All right, guys. I'll see you next week.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Bye bye.